Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. So as you guys know, I've been making some tattoo flash tutorials or just some draw with me's on YouTube, some long format videos, and recently I got into sort of drawing flash on watercolor paper just because it seems like a really good change in medium. So in today's video I'm just going to be coffee staining some pieces of flash that I've worked on. And coffee staining is literally what it sounds like. I just brewed some coffee and I'm going to just brush a little bit of coffee over the canvas with a thick brush so that it gives it like this sort of vintage look. You can see there that it's coffee because I just took a sip. I'm obviously not going to be drinking from this after I brush a couple of these, but I just wanted to prove that it was actual coffee. So as you can see, the coffee goes on and I spread it pretty thin. And when it dries, it kind of gives this aged, rugged, vintage canvas look that we're going for, that you find in a lot of traditional American flash sheets. So we're just trying to replicate that look with some coffee. And this is something that I saw on TikTok, so I wanted to give it a try just because this is basically my first time trying to paint some flash. And so anything that I can do to make it look more like the real thing is going to be something worth doing. And this process was actually a lot of fun and very relaxing to get to do in front of the camera. I just popped an AirPod in and just did my thing. One of the things that you might notice with this actual drawing, the one that I'm coffee staining right now, is that I'm trying not to get any coffee on the parts of the painting that I've already gone through with watercolor, black watercolor for shading. And that's because any of the water from the coffee is going to cause some of the darker parts to stain because there's still some pigment that's loose, and so when you wet it, it'll act like I'm still painting and shading. And so I'm avoiding those parts just because at the beginning I made the mistake and passed a very soaked brush over those areas and started to spread some of the black ink. So I was just working diligently to avoid making contact with those areas while still trying to give the outside that very coffee stained look. But for pieces like the one I'm working on now, it doesn't really matter just because that's just Sharpie on watercolor paper, and so the Sharpie isn't going to spread because it's dried already. And so these pieces are a little quicker to stain just because I can take a very saturated brush and just go back and forth and spread it out evenly and back and forth. And as you see here, I keep going back between my left and my right arm just because I keep forgetting that I want the best shot of this entire process. But after about 3/4 of the way on each painting, my arm starts to get a little fatigued just because I'm going back and forth, and that's when I switch hands. But then I always remember, no, like I don't want to block the drawing on the actual canvas, so I need to make sure that I'm not blocking the view. But anyways guys, this is a new kind of video format that I want to try. I've always loved American traditional tattooing, and even considering creating a tattoo portfolio, maybe looking to go get a tattoo apprenticeship. That's always something that's been on my mind. And I'm at the point in my life where like I'm making career changes, or I'm leaving one career and trying to start another one. So it would not be a bad opportunity or a bad time in my life to sort of devote some time to trying to find an apprenticeship and growing my skills. I obviously really love drawing, I love tattooing, and I love American traditional, so it seems like it would be a smart move, but I haven't decided yet just because there's so many things to consider when trying to take a big leap, and it's obviously something I want to take very, very seriously. I don't want to take it lightly. I don't want to start an apprenticeship and then not be able to see it all the way through just because that would be very disappointing, because tattooing is something I felt like I've wanted to try at one point in my life. Maybe not now, but sometime down the road. And so I'm at a crossroads right now where this could be a viable option. But in the meantime, I'm going to be content with just drawing some flash pieces and trying to understand how to shade and lighting and where light sources are coming from. Alright, so all of these pieces, you might be wondering where I'm getting the inspo. A lot of these I'm just getting inspired by Pinterest and Google Images and Instagram and TikTok. Obviously you don't want to copy someone else's work, but a lot of American traditional iconography tends to be the same, and so there is going to be a lot of similarities between, you know, traditional roses and parrots and eagles and gorillas and stuff like that. So I think the point of this is to study what the shapes are, you know, because every piece is comprised of ellipses and circles and squares and triangles. And so drawing flash and copying it from places like Instagram or Pinterest is a way to study the shapes that comprise these designs, not really about stealing them and making them my own. Obviously there are things that you can do to make these images your own, so you're not copying one to one. Like, I'm obviously not tracing because watercolor paper is pretty dense and thick, and it would be hard to shine a light through it to trace. So I am sort of just mimicking the things that I see on Pinterest and trying to adapt them or alter them, maybe here or there. Maybe I don't like the position of a flower, or I don't like the way a certain element is there. So because you are practicing and you are trying to understand what the underlying shapes are that give rise to each design, it's up to you to really alter it and make it your own. That one's really nice, that parrot that I just finished, one of my favorites. This is another piece that I have already tried shading with watercolors, and so I want to be very cautious about where I am applying the coffee stain so that it doesn't bleed or it doesn't cause some of the pigment to rise in the darker, more saturated parts of the painting that I've already gone through. There's something very satisfying, very relaxing about drawing and painting watercolor flash like this. It is very relaxing to sort of just sit and block off a couple hours of time to do this. So I'm hoping that the next time that I start shading some of these pieces that I can get it on camera so that I can talk about it or just create a video series about it, just because I'm at the point in my YouTube career, I would say, where I'm like trying to find my niche. I'm uploading content that could fit very different niches and trying to see what is the most fun and what garners the most traction so that I can find something at sort of the intersection of those two things. Obviously, anything that I'm passionate about is going to be easier to make a ton of content of, but at the same time, if the content isn't getting any traction, then to some degree you start to begin to ask, like, what's the point of uploading the content, right? If it sort of is just going into a dark abyss. So that's why I've been experimenting with blogs and tutorials. I'm also currently getting a UX certificate with Google and Coursera. So I've been doing a ton of UX work, which allows me to sort of be creative and use research and design skills at the same time. So I've been uploading UX and UX related content as well. I've also been really into biking ever since I got knee surgery 2 years ago in 2020. And so all of these interests tend to make their way into some sort of YouTube video. And so I'm really just trying to see what is going to get me a following and what is going to be something that I can be passionate about, because I don't want YouTube to be something that I dread doing. Like, this is obviously something that I do on my free time outside of my job. Like, I still have to go to work to make money, and then I come back and do this. So it has to be an endeavor that isn't like, it has to be something I enjoy doing, that I can find relaxation in, and that I can find the motivation to continue doing even when it gets difficult. Like, I've been uploading content for a couple years now, and a lot of the stuff doesn't really get a lot of views, but at the same time, because it is something I enjoy doing, I still just do it, right? And I guess it really is about just doing that until you find what hits. But I believe we're getting to the end of this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for sticking through the end. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video.